Dear brothers and sisters, imagine a scroll sealed with 7 seals held in the hand of God Himself, seals that contain the story of our world from Christ's ascension to His glorious return. As the Lamb begins to open each seal, mysteries unfold and the destiny of mankind is revealed. But here's the twist. The first 4 seals don't mark the Great Tribulation just yet. They set the stage with powerful entities riding throughout history: deception, war, famine, and death. These aren't just symbols, they're forces that have been shaping our world for centuries. Are you ready to uncover what these horsemen truly represent and how they've influenced the course of history? And most importantly, are you prepared to discover how these ancient prophecies tie directly into the words of Jesus Himself in Matthew 24? That's right, although few people know this, the 4 seals are presented not only in Revelation, but also in Matthew 24, when Jesus speaks about the signs that will happen before the end. So stay with me as we uncover all of this, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. We have seen how after Jesus' ascension, He takes the scroll with 7 seals from God's right hand. The seals will now begin to be opened. The first 4 seals form one group, and the other 3 form another. The first 4 seals are essentially opened simultaneously, with 4 horsemen being released upon the earth. And the last 3 seals are opened progressively, with events taking place at the opening of each. The 4 seals do not yet represent the Great Tribulation. Before the return of the Lord Jesus, there will be a period called the Great Tribulation, lasting 1260 days. That is, 3.5 years. This period will only begin at the 7th seal. The 6th seal marks the announcement of the coming tribulation. Within the 7th seal, there are 7 trumpets. The 7 trumpets are the content of the 7th seal and constitute the Great Tribulation. It is fascinating to see how its structure is simple, yet at the same time mysterious. The scroll that was in the hand of God the Father, which no one could open before, is now opened by the Lamb. It contains the story and decrees of God's government from the ascension of Christ until His return. The first 4 seals are announced by the 4 living creatures that symbolize creation. These first 4 seals consist of 4 horses and their riders. The riders are not actual people, but rather personified entities. The first rider represents the spirit of deception, the second, war, the third, famine, and the fourth, death. After the ascension of Christ, these 4 entities began to run through the world and will continue until His return. Now let us dive into the first 4 seals. Revelation 6:1-2 says, "Now I watched when the Lamb opened one of the 7 seals, and I heard one of the 4 living creatures say with a voice like thunder, 'Come.' And I looked, and behold, a white horse, and its rider had a bow, and a crown was given to him, and he came out conquering and to conquer." This passage is not as clear about what this horseman is, so there are a couple of different ways that people interpret this. Some view this as the Antichrist, but I do not believe this to be quite the case because the other 3 horsemen are representing things and not people. Some view this horseman as the gospel, whose spread could not be stopped. If you believe this, that's okay, you certainly could make an argument for it. But I personally believe that the best interpretation here is that this is the spirit of deception. This is certainly tied to the Antichrist, since the greatest deception will come through his kingdom, but it is not a representation of the person of the Antichrist, but a representation of the spirit of deception that will be over the Antichrist, but that has also been acting strongly in these past 2,000 years. There have been so many religions formed to deceive people and draw them away from the truth. Deception has conquered over so many people's lives, Islam, for example, being one of them. And there is a strong case to be made that the Antichrist might come from Islam. But why is the horseman white? Because deception must present itself as the truth, as righteousness, as wolf in sheep's clothing, in order to fool people. Notice that the horseman has a bow but no arrow. This is because anything outside of the truth may have the appearance of power, but it does not have true power. The true power is the power of God, and only the power of God can truly deliver and save. Now, what is the biblical argument for this? I will explain this at the end of the video in Matthew 24, but before we get there, you must first know what the other 3 seals represent, so you can understand how Jesus also talked about these 4 horsemen in Matthew 24. Revelation 6 verses 3-4 says, "When he opened the second seal, I heard the second living creature say, 'Come,' and out came another horse, bright red. Its rider was permitted to take peace from the earth, so that people should slay one another, and he was given a great sword. When the second seal was opened, a red horse came out. This second rider represents war. The red color symbolizes 2 things, blood and war. Taking peace from the earth and causing people to kill one another with a sword clearly signifies war. The second rider was given the authority to remove peace from the earth. The Lord said there would be wars on earth to take away the peace of men until the end. Since Christ's ascension, there has never been a time of complete peace across the entire planet. There will only be peace on earth when the Prince of Peace comes to establish his kingdom. In all ages, there have been wars. Do not see them as a sign of Jesus' coming, but rather as evidence of God's decree in history. Wars occur because they are decreed in the scroll of God's government, the scroll that Christ took from God's right hand. Revelation 6, 5-6 says, "When he opened the third seal, I heard the third living creature say, 'Come.' And I looked, and behold, a black horse, and its rider had a pair of scales in his hand. And I heard what seemed to be a voice in the midst of the 4 living creatures saying, 'A quart of wheat for a denarius, and 3 quarts of barley for a denarius, and do not harm the oil and wine.' When the lamp opened the third seal, John saw a black horse and a pair of scales in its rider's hand. The third rider represents famine. The scales symbolize food shortages. The scales are a characteristic instrument of commercial activity, particularly in the sale of grains. In this context, the scales are a symbol of scarcity, and the black horse represents famine. There was also a voice saying, 'A quart of wheat for a denarius and 3 quarts of barley for a denarius.' These measures symbolize inflation. It is simply an illustration of the most well-known law of capitalism, the law of supply and demand. When the supply of products in the market is greater than the demand, prices tend to decrease. On the other hand, when the demand is greater than the supply, prices rise. The voice also says, 'And do not harm the oil and the wine.' These are mentioned because they are noble products consumed only by the wealthy. In times of scarcity, only these people can continue consuming oil and wine. Social inequality will continue to exist until the kingdom of Christ comes. The horse here is black because the color of the famished is dark. The book of Lamentations says that famine causes a dark appearance in people. Now their face is blacker than soot. They are not recognized in the streets. Their skin has shriveled on their bones. It has become as dry as wood. Happier were the victims of the sword than the victims of hunger, who wasted away pierced by lack of the fruits of the field. Economic crisis and famine have been present throughout history for these past 2,000 years. Even today, hundreds of millions of people go to bed hungry every day. Revelation 6, 7-8 says, "When he opened the 4th seal, I heard the voice of the 4th living creature say, 'Come.' And I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and its rider's name was Death, and Hades followed him. And they were given authority over 1/4 of the earth, to kill with sword, and with famine, and with pestilence, and by wild beasts of the earth. The 4th rider is Death. In the original text, the 4th horse has the pale, yellow-greenish color of a corpse. Hell is Hades, the place where the souls of the condemned await the judgment of the great white throne. Hell should not be confused with the lake of fire. Hades is a temporary prison. In the end, hell itself will be thrown into the lake of fire. What type of death is caused by the 4th rider? According to the verse, he was given authority over 1/4 of the earth to kill with the sword, with famine, with plague, and by the wild beasts of the earth. This certainly includes epidemics, which will always exist. Even the translation of wild beasts here is sometimes thought to be referring not just to literal big ferocious animals, but also to microbes such as bacteria and viruses. And what is interesting is that even during the greatest pandemic that existed in history, the Black Plague, even though 30 to 60% of Europe's population died, historians estimate that this was about 20% of the population of the world. So even with the deadliest pandemic of all time, most historians estimate that no more than 25% of the world population died. This is consistent with the fourth rider being given authority over a maximum of a quarter or 25% of the world. Therefore, we know that the four seals are deception, war, famine, and death, including through pestilence. In Matthew 24, the disciples ask Jesus for the signs of the end times. As he answers, he mentions these four things in the same order. Using the KJV or NKJV, Matthew 24, verse 4 and on says, "And Jesus answered and said to them, Take heed that no one deceives you, for many will come in my name saying, I am the Christ, and will deceive many." Here is the first sign that Jesus speaks about, or the first seal, deception. "And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom." Here's the second seal, which is war. Notice that Jesus says that these things will happen not at the end, but before the end. "And there will be famines." Here is the third seal, pestilences and earthquakes in various places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. Here is the fourth seal, which is death through different means, including through pestilences. Matthew 24 is the chapter that Jesus outlines the whole history from then until the end times. These first four seals reveal the things that would be happening from Jesus' ascension and on. These four horsemen have been riding the earth in these past 2,000 years, but as Jesus says, the end is not yet. The 7-year tribulation starts with the Antichrist signing a 7-year peace deal with Israel. And the Great Tribulation of 3.5 years starts halfway through when the peace deal is broken and the 7th seal is opened, which will bring the 7 trumpets. We will study the next 3 seals in our next lesson. Brothers and sisters, leave your questions in the comment section below. This is lesson 25 of our verse-by-verse study of the book of Revelation. Don't forget to subscribe so you'll not miss any of our future lessons as we continue our study of Revelation chapter 6. May the grace and peace of our Lord Jesus Christ be with you.